everybody, welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie. That's right, you guys. And thank you so much for all the love, support, everything you guys give me here. I'm always going to... I'm also author of these books right here, and where you can get my merchandise, because I have some funny merchandise that's based around Lemmy, Lars Ulrich, Steve Jones and the Sex Pistols. Everything's down in that description, guys, so go down, go down, go down. You know how I like it. And what I was saying, thank you guys for all the love, all the support, the amazing community I have here. And if you are new here, you guys welcome. Become a part of it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit my bells, because we are an awesome community, and I've got a lot of things coming up here on Cocktails and Rocktails, okay? So go down, you guys. And speaking of going down, we're going to talk about a little subject today. We're going to have a reading, because you guys are seeming to like this. And we're going to have a reading from pretty early on in my little groupie career. Let me see. What year is it? It is 1987, and you guys, guess who's going to be here this week, day after tomorrow? You bet your ass it's Kristen. Kristen will be here, so be prepared, because shit's going to go fucking crazy. I might even have her do her own show and take over for me for a couple episodes. I think that would be kind of fun. Hostile takeover, but not really hostile. All right, guys. And today's cocktail, we are going to have a little local Hive winery that I started on the last video. But I'm going to be finishing it off here because it's so good. It's from our local Hive winery. These guys are awesome. They make mead wines. They make ciders, hard ciders and stuff. And this one is a Sweet Alice, because, you know, it's close to my name. And one of my favorite brewmasters from Shades, one of my favorite local brewery, he moved over to these guys. So always going to be happy to support Marcio in his endeavors, because he's amazing. And Hive Winery is fucking awesome for having him. All right, guys. So grab your Sweet Alice's, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktail and rocktail, shall we? Cheers, big ears. This stuff is so delicious. I absolutely love it. Okay, and today we are going to be reading about April 1997. A little Ratt and Roll. That's right, we're having a little story that I have told briefly before here. And it was when I very first started the channels, because you guys, we are on 2 years. 2 years we've been around, so it's going to be our anniversary at the end of this month. And really, truly, I want to do something to thank everybody and my longtime supporters and Patreon, especially you guys. I really want to do a whole lot for you guys, so stick around. All right. So, this was April of 1987. I was still a teenager, but of the age of consent in my state. Okay. So, Ratt and Roll, here are the passes for this particular show. After the Iron Maiden concert, I was over the Brighton Rockers clique's attitudes. What were they? Weekend hypocrites? Nothing to me. Because my high school at Brighton, I was like the school slut with only sleeping with one guy from my high school. But because I was a groupie, I had this reputation. People were my best friend when their favorite band was in town, but they talked shit about me behind my back the rest of the year. So this is why I write about this. We all know that the high school cliques can be pretty rude. And rockers were like the popular cliques, because it was the 80s. And rockers were everything. So I was an outsider in that school and began to feel the weight, the pressure to choose between my newfound world of rock and roll and this little cubicle of judgment that was becoming my daily existence. I was completely nothing of the girl who had moved here from that small town in Missouri. Nothing was left of that girl, not even a shoe. They really weren't. I had replaced all my Duran Duran Oxford loafers with rocker chick heels and boots. Oh yeah, that my mom. She would watch me and Danny wobbling out the door, and literally wobbling out the door on our heels. It was hilarious. And anybody who knows me knows I still love to wobble around on my heels, but now I got a little bit more of a sexy shake. I've mastered them. All right. Danny was coming back, and there was also that Kristen girl I had met if I really needed a backstage companion. So this is when Kristen and I first met, but hadn't really hung out yet. But for now, I had to concentrate on the next show and what I was going to wear, because you're a teenager. What you look like, what you wear, the plans, that's everything, right? After all, Ratt was coming back, and I wanted that lead singer, Stephen Piercy. He supposedly was a stock stuffer, but I wanted to find out for myself. I had to look good because all the groupies would be out for these guys in force, because Ratt was hugely popular. They had a bunch of good-looking guys. They were a groupie's wet dream. Literally, like, it was like the candy store with the glam rockers. They were a Sunset Strip glam band, and in the 80s, those were the coveted boys to the most groupies. To me, they were a much-needed skill sharpener. So instead of sitting around and worrying about the backstabbing going on at my high school, I went shopping. I found the perfect aqua blue mini dress and black heels to hopefully catch Steven's attention with. At least that is how I felt when I slid the dress on the day of the show. It hit in all the right places, and fell just below my ass, suggesting the absence of panties, but not completely letting everybody know. I knew I could at least entice a roadie to give me a backstage pass, if anything, and then ditch him for the singer. This was a common thing that happened in the 80s. It was. Groupies would hang out with the road crew, have a couple drinks, get their passes, go backstage, and they would be lost to the lead singer, the drummer, blah, 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 blah. Or in the 80s, a lot of bands did this. They paid roadies a bonus to bring them their girls for the night. And whichever one they picked, whoever roadie brought that back, would get $100 bonus. This was a fact. This actually happened. So, okay. Even if I did ditch the roadie, it wouldn't matter to him. He probably got a bonus for bringing the groupie that fucked a band member backstage anyway. I was learning how to be a little vixen on the scene quite quickly. And by vixen, I don't mean used. I mean a vixen in owning my sexuality and the band game. Because that's where that little line in a certain song comes from about games they played. Anyway, but that's what we called it, the band game. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I was learning, and what can I say? The boys were teaching me well, because that's the difference between me and a lot of groupies. I didn't learn from other women. I learned how the boys played the game, and I beat them at that, at their own game. That's what the 80s ladies did. We grabbed our cojones and slapped the rockers in the face with them. And they loved it. All right. Anyway, I got backstage with a couple other girls I knew from school that had been on the prowl as well. We were immediately taken back to the first meet and creep room. There seemed to be two. One for the fans and the other for the hot girls. I was happy to be among the herd for this one time and one time only. Because I talk about the herding of the girls for two different meet and creep rooms. You have the meet and creep for the fans, and you have the meet and creep for the girls who are going to fuck on the back of the bus at the end of the night. If they're leaving and not staying in town and don't have a girl in that town. But anyway, there's other factors. Okay. I looked around and I saw Bochet, who was always with the drummer Bobby. Why, I don't know. She was gorgeous and seemed like such a sweet girl, and he was such an asshat. Loudmouth and ignorant, but at least, and we're finding that out lately in the past few years, Bobby Blotzer is a total fucking tool and a dick. How anybody even liked him, how he got Bochet was beyond me. Okay. But at least that was one girl out of the competition. The rest were okay, because I'd be honest about this being a competition. Other groupies from the 70s, they weren't. They weren't honest about the fact that, just like the Playboy models, every year came a new crop of girls. So you had to hold on to your place in the backstage world. back then it was a competition, but some girls didn't have to compete because we just had, like me and my friends, we just had, and I don't mean that like rude, we just had a natural connection with the boys that was bigger than just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We were part of a road family. Now, when I'm talking about the 80s, I'm talking mostly sex, drugs, and rock and roll as we were growing into being part of the family. And this is 1987, so I was growing into it. Okay, The rest of the girls were backstage were beautiful, but kind of blending in their black spandex and Aquanet hair. Because that was kind of the uniform that you see now. All these girls are in that same Ed Hardy, black spandex, belts, bikini tops, boots. Kind of the same back in the 80s. So it blends in. And ladies, let this be a lesson. I was at least colorful, and that was exactly what Robin Crosby said as he wandered in, unnoticed, to me. He came over and complimented the front cutout of the expo because it had this cutout on my stomach. Oh, that's right. I loved this dress too. Exposing the space going south from my breast to my belly. He pursed his lips and began to sign his name between my girls. I didn't ask him to. I was kind of stunned, but kind of wanting to see what he was going to do next. I wanted to learn how to seduce these guys with their own moves. I was convinced that the things that they used could easily be used on them around every corner. So I could take them down one after the other. Because that's what a vixen is. A vixen is a woman who takes control of her sexuality. She's like a siren. She's like a Scheherazade. She knows how to take down men with their own moves. And very few women get that. So ladies who want to be groupies, take that as a lesson. Number 1. Okay, anyway. So Robin finished his name and drew an arrow down past my belly, indicating where he wanted to be that night. Okay, cool. He was a backup, but still not Stephen Piercy. I thanked Robin for his Picasso-esque autograph and turned away to grab one of the beers from the ice-filled gray tub on the table. Jill and Dana, who were the girls I went to the show with, took over from there while I watched the door carefully for who was next. Juan came in and then Warren. The group's bass player and lead guitarist wandered in and began mingling. Juan came over to see what was happening on my body. He saw Robin's work, and along with another girl I knew, Karma, Dimmick, she's a bitch, tried in vain to help me get it off. Somewhere between the wet paper towels and his bald hand rubbing, because Juan and Karma were helping me try and describe Robin, because I didn't ask for Robin, and it was a Sharpie. I didn't want that permanently on me. God, for real. Ask musicians, ask the groupie before you sign her tits, okay? At least let her get them out for you. God. Okay. Somewhere between the wet paper towels and Juan's bald hand rubbing, we seemed to get it at least faded. Robin wasn't too happy since he considered it marking his territory. Oh well, there were more girls to choose from. Juan and I stood talking with Jill and Warren. We decided to go smoke some weed after some much contemplation. Oh well, if Stephen was not going to appear, I was going to at least get a good buzz going. But just as we were walking out, I saw him coming down the hallway from the real meet and creep room and into the harem room. Stephen confidently walked down the hall and smiled, and his seemingly lispy smile. Hey, he began looking at Warren and Juan. Where are you guys going? Anything good on the menu tonight? He said, referring to the harem room. Juan filled him in on our plan to head to the bus and what the room looked like. Pretty hot. Stephen decided to come with us after seeing there were 4 girls to 2 other guys. He could probably have his choice of one of us because it was me, Karma, Jill, and Dana. So there was 4 of us and just 2 guys. He could have his choice of me. And after a drink or 3 on the bus in the dark night while looking out the windows to the new faces showing up on the sidewalk, hoping to get a chance to get on that bus, Stephen did choose me. He grabbed my hand after some pretty sexy conversation and led me into the back lounge of the bus. It was a couch-lined stereo heaven in which the door locked and the cushions expanded out for our comfort. Dukes of Hazzard was playing on the TV stuck on the back wall. Dukes of Hazzard was on a lot back in those days on minibuses. I mean, not that I know that I spent a lot of time on tour buses in the 80s. Yes, I did. Okay. That show seemed to be on in those late nights on the bus before satellite TV and internet. But back to this lead singer. I had done it. Here I was with the man that could have been my first Salt Lake City conquest if it hadn't been for my mom on the other side of the street, keeping vigil on my chastity. My mom was nowhere to be found tonight, and now Stephen Piercy had nothing to stop him from pushing me down underneath him. Some of you know how this story ends. Stephen slid the dress down from my hips before removing what little shirt he did have on and undoing the button on his pants. "Oh, let me help you with that," I said. So I went down to his zipper and began to finish one job and begin another. Half the fun of being with a rocker is seeing if he lives up to the hype. Stephen had some mixed rumors, because he was known for having a bulge, but what was the bulge from? The balls, the cojones, or the rod? We're about to find out. I put my lips on his stomach as he lifted his ass and slid down his jeans. I put my hand down and grabbed his cojones, feeling for the COCK that was going to be resting on top of them. But all I could find was, well, balls. I lifted my head ever so carefully as not to freak him out, and slid down so I could be eye to eye with it. Well, that didn't do any favors, did it? I must have not been feeling right or something. I got face to face with Stephen's private parts, and all I could think is that hard? Is it? And it smelled funky, you guys. You've heard the story, some of you, so you know. I think I gagged under my breath like I don't know which is worse, Stephen Piercy's smell or Kip Winger's taste. I would have to say Kip Winger's taste, because that actually got it's got spit out. But Stephen Piercy's funk never. You're gonna find out. Okay. I think I gagged under my breath. Below average, or maybe full on average, and not really enough girth to be worth the walk's shame. That's Stephen Piercy in a nutshell. His nuts were bigger than his shell, that's for sure. The smell was going to make me throw up on his dick, and I knew it. That would be unacceptable at best. I had to make a decision. Either suffer through and suck it off, hoping he would be quick, or get the fuck out. He wasn't all that anyway, as I had just found out. I had learned last time with Bruce Dickinson that chemistry was pretty important, part of the rock and roll mating game, and the chemistry between Stephen and me was just a small firecracker at best. He could be the chemistry between Stephen and me was a small firecracker at best. How could the sex have been? Meh. I chose to run. My dress had never been fully pulled off, and my heels were exactly where they had been all night, still on my feet. So I kicked the back lounge door open, and I did too. I did a full-on Charlie's Angel. Because that smell was permeating the whole back lounge. And if anybody, ladies that have been on the back lounge, if you know, you know. It permeated. Like I had smelled something down the hallway where the bunks were, where the guys lay and sleep, you know, I had smelled something funky. I just figured it was too many bunk socks. Those are, guys use them. But no, it wasn't the bunk socks. It was Stephen Piercy's pee. Yes, it was. Okay. So I kicked the back lounge door open kind of accidentally as I was backing off the turtle poking at my face. I fell back into a bunk and jumped to my feet. Stephen looked horrified and stunned. I pulled at my dress, went to the end of the bunk hallway, and opened up the door to the front lounge, where the whole new stack of people had joined my friends for some smoke time. They all stopped among the commotion to stare at the door. Because I was still kind of halfway. I was pulled up, but not all the way together. And my hair, and Stephen was just kind of like, what the fuck? And I was just like... you could tell by the look on my face this was not. And my friend Jill and Dana. Jill especially. I love you, Jill. You were so funny. Okay. They all stopped among the commotion to stare at the door. Me, coming out from the back lounge, looking disheveled and probably a bit sideways, probably didn't look good. I didn't want to make too much of a stink of things. Pun totally intended. So I just said I drank too much and we have to go. Jill and Dana had no problem with that. They were having fun, but also kicked back enough not to care if we left or not. Juan made sure we got to our car okay, and we sped off into the night. As we left the Salt Palace in the rearview mirror, I told him this sordid story. We laughed our asses off the whole way home. Well, so much for that band, but at least Juan and Warren were cool. So there's the story, because if you read my book, you know that, like, Ratt was one of the first bands that I actually met. After David Lee Roth, when I first moved to Salt Lake City, it was the first actual concert I went to. I really wanted Stephen Piercy so bad, but no, I'm so glad that I didn't, because literally, like I said, I would rather, I don't know, I don't know which is worse. Stephen Piercy's smell or Kip Winger's taste. I think they were both eating at the same diner. And in all fairness, in Stephen Piercy's own autobiography, he said he liked breakfast, lunch, and dinner for his groupies. He had one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. All different groupies. And let me tell you, whoever breakfast, lunch, and dinner were, y'all fucking need to get a little Summer's Eve. Or I don't know what one of you gave to Stephen, but it was... Sweet pea. That had the smell of chlamydia written all over it. I wouldn't put that anywhere near my mouth. Or anything else on my body. So there you guys go. There's the first time that I actually got to try and be with Stephen Piercy. But it was also the first time that I realized that the decision to have the rocker groupie experience was not necessarily the rockers. It was mine. And that is kind of how I lived my groupie life, knowing that it was my decision. And it is for, women hold the power. We really, really do. I mean, women have taken men down like that. Look at Monica Lewinsky. Look at Stormy Daniels. Look at the girls, Mandy Rice Davies back in the 60s in the UK. Look at Scheherazade. Throughout the years, Marilyn Monroe. Well, she was taken down, so she didn't ruin any men. But women actually have more power when it comes to whether the man is going to get us into bed. And this was one of my realizations that this was my choice. And I was in high school. I was a teenager. So if I knew who I was, I definitely know who I am now. And that stuck with me my whole groupie career, stripper career, my life in general. And there you go, guys. Ladies, once you're in that back lounge, no is still no. Get the fuck out. You don't want to be there. You're just not feeling it. Get up and go. And if you need to, in the long run, use your heel. Because heels are really great weapons, especially in the mosh pit. Yes. But there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed today's little reading. Kristen's going to be here soon if I haven't already posted. I'm filming on a Tuesday. She's going to be here the day after tomorrow, filming with me. So you guys Who knows what's going to happen? She may do a hostile takeover and do her own show for my channels. But we'll see. Maybe it'll end up in a podcast. Kind of want it to. Because I think Kristen and I would love Danny to join if she wanted to, because I think we'd all do a killer podcast. But anyway, all right, you guys, don't forget, while you are here, if you're just haunting my channel and enjoying me, least you can do is go down, hit the bells, hit the subscribe, hit the share, and watch a commercial, you guys. Really support the channel. Doesn't cost you anything except for 1 minute of your time. So, all right, go down, hit my bells. And we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.